Captain stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute and watched the alien council chambers through the main screen. His ship floated in orbit above the meeting place, waiting. Inside those chambers, Ambassador was about to speak to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Had been a soldier for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this war. The Dominion and the Coalition had been fighting for 18 years now. Whole planets burned, billions died, and for what? Territory, resources, pride. Humanity wanted no part of it. "Captain, the Ambassador is beginning her address," said Commander Jin Park from the tactical station. Jin was second in command and his oldest friend. They had served together since the early days of Earth's space program. Nodded and watched the screen. Ambassador stood before hundreds of alien delegates. She was a small woman compared to most of the beings in that room, but she held herself with quiet dignity. She wore a simple blue suit with Earth's flag on her shoulder. "Members of the Galactic Council," began, her voice calm and clear. "Humanity thanks you for the invitation to observe these proceedings. However, I must formally declare Earth's position on the current conflict. We are neutral. We will not take sides. We will not provide weapons, supplies, or support to either faction." A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. Some delegates chittered. Others growled. The representative, a massive creature with scales like black armor and eyes like burning coals, actually laughed. "Neutral?" the boomed. His voice was deep enough to vibrate through the speakers. "Of course the humans are neutral. They are too weak to matter, too young to understand galactic politics, too afraid to fight." Several other delegates made sounds of agreement. The representative, a being made of what looked like living crystal, chimed in with a voice like breaking glass. "The humans should be grateful we allow them to observe at all. They have nothing to offer this conflict. No military strength, no strategic resources. They are children playing at the adults' table." Felt his jaw tighten. Jin made a small, angry sound beside him, but Ambassador did not react. She simply bowed slightly and returned to her seat. "She handled that well," Jin muttered. "Better than I would have." "That's why she's the Ambassador and we're the soldiers," replied. But inside, he felt the same anger. Being dismissed as irrelevant stung worse than being called an enemy. The council meeting continued. Both factions presented their cases. The claimed ancient rights to the Helios sector. The claim they had settled there first. Both sides showed evidence. Both sides made threats. Neither side would compromise. Doctor joined them on the bridge. She was the ship's chief scientist and the best Earth had. She studied alien cultures and biology, trying to help humans understand their new neighbors in space. "They're going to keep fighting," said quietly, watching the screen. "Neither side will back down. This war could last another 50 years. "Let them fight," Jin said. "As long as they leave human space alone, it's not our problem." But wasn't so sure. He had studied military history his whole life. He knew how wars spread, how they pulled in nations that wanted to stay neutral, how they consumed everything in their path. "Commander Park, what's the status of our colonies?" asked. Jin checked his console. "All green, Captain. Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, Europa, and the outer settlements are secure. Our furthest colony is New Sol on the edge of space, but it's agricultural. No military value." 3 weeks later, everything changed. Was in his quarters reviewing supply reports when the alarm sounded. He ran to the bridge in seconds. Jin was already there, his face pale. "Report ordered." "Distress signal from New Sol," Jin said, his voice tight. "They're under attack." The main screen showed the colony. New Sol was a beautiful place, or it had been. Green fields, peaceful farms, small towns. 300,000 people had lived there, mostly Korean families who wanted a quiet life away from the crowded inner system. Now it burned. Ships fought in orbit above the colony. Vessels and ships blasted each other with energy weapons. Stray shots hit the planet's surface. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, buildings collapsed, fields turned to ash. "They're in the crossfire," whispered. She had appeared on the bridge, her eyes wide with horror. "The colony is between the two fleets. They're just ignoring the people down there." Opened a communication channel. "This is Captain of the United Nations ship Resolute to all vessels in the new Sol system. You are attacking a civilian colony. Cease fire immediately and allow us to evacuate." The commander's face appeared on screen. "The colony is in strategically relevant territory, human. Remove your ship or be fired upon." "There are 300,000 civilians down there," shouted. "Then they should have chosen a better location for their colony," the replied, and cut the transmission. The response was similar. The colony didn't matter to them. The battle mattered. The war mattered. Human lives were just numbers. Sent an emergency message to Earth Command. The response came back within the hour. His orders were clear: observe only. Do not engage. Do not risk the ship. Do not escalate the situation. For 3 days, and his crew watched New Sol burn. They picked up what escape pods they could. They rescued survivors who made it to space, but most of the colonists were trapped on the surface with no way out. Jin didn't sleep for those 3 days. His younger sister lived on New Sol with her daughter. He spent every moment scanning for any sign of them, sending coded messages, praying they were still alive. Ambassador returned to the Resolute on the 4th day. She went straight to ready room and closed the door behind her. "I presented evidence of the attack to the council," she said. Her voice was steady but her hands shook. "They dismissed it, said civilian casualties were expected in war, said New Sol should have evacuated when the fighting came to that sector." "But they wouldn't let us evacuate," said. "I know," sat down heavily. "Captain, I've been a diplomat for 30 years. I've negotiated treaties. I've prevented wars. I've always believed that talking was better than fighting. But these aliens, they don't see us as people. To them, we're just things in the way." Looked at her carefully. "What are you saying, Ambassador?" Met his eyes. "I'm saying that I sent my full report to Earth. I included everything. The laughter when I mentioned human casualties, the dismissal of our concerns, the casual way they treat human lives as worthless." She stood up. "I'm saying that something is going to change, and when it does, I hope we're ready." She left the ready room, turned back to his console and pulled up the casualty reports from New Sol. The numbers kept growing. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. The aliens thought humans would stay neutral because they were weak, because they were afraid, because they didn't matter. Looked out at the stars and felt something cold settle in his chest. Not rage, not hatred, something worse. Determination. They were going to learn exactly how wrong they were. Commander Jin Park made his decision in the middle of the night. He couldn't sleep anyway. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his sister's face and heard his niece's laughter. They were down there on New Sol. They were trapped, and his orders said to do nothing. Jin had always followed orders, always, but this time the orders were wrong. He gathered a team of 20 volunteers. All of them had family or friends on New Sol. None of them could stand by and watch anymore. They took a small transport ship, one too small to show up clearly on or sensors. They told no one. They just went. The flight down through the battle was terrifying. Explosions lit up the sky. Energy beams cut through the darkness. But the small ship slipped through, hiding among the debris and chaos. They landed outside the colony's main town. What they found made Jin's blood run cold. The town was destroyed, not from stray fire. This was deliberate. Buildings had been systematically demolished. Scorch marks covered everything. And in the central square, Jin found bodies. Hundreds of them. Men, women, children, all dead. "Commander," one of his team called out, "we found something." They had located an underground shelter. The entrance was hidden under rubble, but it was intact. Jin's team cleared the way and opened the heavy door. Inside, they found survivors. 15,000 people crammed into a space meant for 5,000. They had no food left, no medicine. Many were injured. And there in the back of the shelter Jin found. His sister was alive. She was hurt, her arm in a makeshift sling, but she was alive. Her daughter was with her, holding her mother's hand. Jin whispered when she saw him. Tears ran down her face. "You came." "Of course I came," Jin said, hugging her carefully. "We're getting you out." But only 8 years old looked up at him with eyes too old for her age. "The others," she said. "The people outside. Why didn't you help them?" Jin had no answer. He and his team worked for hours loading survivors onto the transport. They made 3 trips, risking everything each time. By the end, they had saved all 15,000 people from that shelter. But 15,000 out of 300,000. When they returned to the Resolute, Captain was waiting. Jin expected to be arrested for disobeying orders. Instead, just nodded. "Good work, Commander," was all he said. Doctor examined the survivors. What she found made her sick. Many showed signs of exposure to biological weapons. Others had injuries from banned energy weapons. The aliens hadn't just caught the colony in crossfire. They had used New Seoul as a testing ground. Compiled her report with shaking hands. She documented everything. The illegal weapons, the deliberate targeting of civilians, the war crimes. Ambassador took the report to the Galactic Council personally. She presented it with photos, medical data, survivor testimony. She showed them the bodies, the children, the evidence of deliberate massacre. The representative looked at the evidence and shrugged. "Regrettable," he said, "but statistically insignificant losses in a conflict of this scale. The humans knew the risks of placing a colony in a war zone." "We placed the colony there 50 years before your war started," said, her voice like ice. "Then you should have moved it when the war began," the representative chimed in. "This is not our concern." Stood in that chamber and felt something break inside her. Not her will, not her spirit, but her faith that these beings could be reasoned with. She returned to the Resolute and sent a single message to Earth. "They laugh at our dead. They mock our pain. They will not stop. I recommend we prepare for the worst." On Earth, the message reached Admiral. He was the supreme commander of the United Nations Space Fleet. He was old, nearly 70, with gray hair and scars from the last war humans had fought against each other, decades ago. He had spent his whole career maintaining peace. He read Ambassador's report. He looked at the photos of New Seoul. He watched the video testimony of survivors. One video in particular spread across Earth like wildfire. A young woman named Han, Commander Jin's niece, spoke directly to the camera. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were haunted. "They killed my father right in front of me," said. "I watched a soldier step over his body. I screamed for help. The soldier looked at me and laughed, because to him we're nothing, to all of them we're nothing. They think we're weak. They think we'll do nothing." She paused, wiping tears from her face. "They think we're nothing," she repeated. "Are we?" The video played on every news channel, every screen, every device. Billions of humans watched it, and something ancient woke up inside humanity, something that had been sleeping for 100 years of peace. Admiral appeared before the United Earth Assembly. The chamber was packed. Every representative was there. Every screen around the world showed his face. "Members of the Assembly," he began, "I have served this planet for 50 years. I have worked for peace. I have avoided conflict. I believed we had left war behind us." He paused. "I was wrong, not about peace, but about what it takes to preserve it." He brought up the images from New Seoul on the main screen. "These aliens have killed 300,000 human beings. They have laughed at our pain. They have mocked our calls for justice. They believe we are weak. They believe we will do nothing." His voice grew harder. "I am not asking for permission to go to war. I am stating a fact. They drew the line. They crossed it. Now we show them what it means to underestimate humanity. The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth went to war. But not the way the aliens expected. Humans didn't charge in with rage and emotion. They planned, they calculated, they prepared. Every shipyard on Earth, Mars, Luna, and Titan went into full production. Factories that had been building cargo ships started building warships. Scientists who had been studying peaceful applications of technology turned their minds to weapons. Engineer Wu was one of them. He was 40 years old, quiet, brilliant. Before the war, he had designed fusion reactors for colony ships. Now he designed something else. He stood before Admiral and showed him the plans. The aliens use energy shields, Wu explained. Their shields stop plasma, lasers, all energy weapons. But they've been fighting each other for so long, they've forgotten about simpler weapons. He pulled up a design. We accelerate solid metal projectiles to a fraction of light speed. The shields don't stop solid objects. They're designed wrong for that. Admiral looked at the design. How fast can you build them? Give me 3 months, Wu said. I can retrofit every ship in the fleet. But Wu had more ideas. Missiles that jammed alien sensors. Electronic warfare systems that could blind entire fleets. Tactics pulled from 10,000 years of human warfare, adapted for space. The aliens had been fighting each other for 18 years. Humans had been fighting each other for all of history. They knew war in ways the aliens had forgotten. Captain received new orders. He was given command of a battle group, 70 ships, not big by alien standards, but crewed by humans who had something the aliens didn't. A reason to fight. Commander Jin Park stood beside on the bridge of the Resolute. The ship had been refitted with Wu's weapons. In the hangar bay, 30 new fighters waited, piloted by volunteers who trained day and night. Do you think we can win? Jin asked quietly. Looked at his friend. They think we're weak because we value peace. They don't understand that we value peace because we know the cost of war. We know it better than anyone. He turned to face the main screen where stars waited in the darkness. We can win because we have to, because if we don't, they'll keep killing us, keep laughing at us, keep treating us like we're nothing. Then let's show them what nothing looks like when it gets angry, Jin said. Smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who had been pushed too far and was finally pushing back. Send the message to Earth Command, ordered. Task Force Resolute is ready for deployment. The war was about to change. The aliens just didn't know it yet. 4 months passed. 4 months while humanity prepared. The galaxy didn't notice. They were too busy watching and destroy each other to pay attention to the quiet humans in the corner. That was their first mistake. Captain Song sat in her fighter cockpit and ran through the pre-flight checks for the 100th time. She was 30 years old, born on Mars, and she had been flying since she was 16. Before the war, she flew cargo runs between colonies. Now she led Ghost Squadron, 30 of the best pilots humanity had. Her fighter was new. It didn't look like much, just a sleek black shape no bigger than a small transport. But it was packed with technology the aliens had never seen. Stealth coating that absorbed sensor waves. An engine that ran cold, giving off almost no heat signature. Weapons designed by Engineer Wu himself. Ghost Leader, this is Resolute, Captain's voice came through her helmet. You are clear for launch. Remember the mission profile. Copy that, Resolute replied. Ghost Squadron, form up on me, let's go hunting. 30 fighters launched from the Resolute's hangar bay. They accelerated away from the fleet, heading toward the patrol group that had been spotted near human space. They had gotten bold. They sent ships close to human colonies now, scanning, probing, testing to see if humanity would react. They were about to get their answer. The patrol was 12 ships, big, powerful vessels with enough firepower to level a city. They moved in a standard formation, confident and unconcerned. Why would they worry? Humans were weak. Harmless, nothing to fear. Ghost Squadron approached on silent running. The stealth coding worked perfectly. The sensors saw nothing. Even when fighters got close, within weapons range, the aliens had no idea they were there. All units weapons free, ordered. Let's teach them to pay attention. 30 fighters opened fire at once. Rounds traveling at incredible speeds punched through shields like they weren't there. Missiles locked onto engine signatures and struck with perfect accuracy. In the first 10 seconds, 6 ships exploded. The remaining 6 ships panicked. They fired in all directions, trying to hit enemies they couldn't see. But her pilots were already moving, dancing between the energy blasts, firing from new angles. 47 minutes after the fight began, 12 ships were destroyed or disabled. Ghost Squadron hadn't lost a single fighter. Brought her squadron home. As they landed in the Resolute's hangar, the crew cheered. It was humanity's first real victory, small but significant. They had proven something important. Humans could fight, and humans could win. The response was swift and arrogant. They sent a full battle fleet, 200 ships, enough firepower to conquer a planet. They came to crush the humans, to show them what happened when lesser species challenged the Dominion. Captain was waiting for them at Station, an old mining outpost on the edge of human space. He had 70 ships. Against 200, the aliens expected an easy victory. Admiral watched from Earth as the battle began. The main tactical display showed both fleets moving into position. They came in their traditional formation, a massive wall of ships advancing together, shields overlapping for maximum protection. "Captain," Admiral said over the command channel, "execute Plan Thunder." "Yes, sir," replied. "All ships execute Thunder Protocol." The human fleet split apart. Instead of meeting the head-on, they scattered in a dozen different directions. The commander must have thought the humans were running. He ordered his fleet to pursue. That was their second mistake. As soon as the formation broke apart, trying to chase multiple human groups, sprung his trap. Hidden in the asteroid field near Station, 30 more human ships had been waiting, powered down and invisible. They powered up all at once and struck the fleet from behind. Commander Jin Park led the ambush force. His ships focused on the command vessels, the big cruisers that controlled the fleet. Rounds tore through hulls. Missiles overwhelmed point defenses. Electronic warfare systems jammed communications, turning their coordination into chaos. The main human fleet turned and came back, catching them from the other side. The aliens were surrounded, confused, their formation shattered. Doctor watched from the Resolute Science Station. She had studied psychology and tactics for months. She knew how they thought. "They're pack hunters," she had told during the planning. "They rely on overwhelming force and direct confrontation. They don't know how to handle asymmetric warfare." She was right. The ships tried to reform their battle line, but human ships kept hitting them from unexpected angles. Ghost Squadron flew through the battle, striking and vanishing like phantoms. Drone ships, controlled by AI and following unpredictable patterns, swarmed the larger vessels. The Battle of Station lasted 8 hours. By the end, 197 ships were destroyed or so badly damaged they had to surrender. The human fleet lost 6 vessels, 6 against 197. The surviving commander sent a message to his. The message was intercepted by human intelligence. Engineer Wu translated it from the bridge of the Resolute. "The humans," the message said, "are not what we thought. They do not fight with honor. They use tricks, deception, weapons we have never seen. They are dangerous. Send reinforcements." Wu looked up from his console. "Captain, they're calling us dangerous." Allowed himself a small smile. "Good, let them be afraid." News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species watched in shock. The coalition immediately sent scouts to observe human military capabilities. Other neutral species began sending diplomatic messages to Earth, suddenly very interested in establishing friendships. But the most important reaction came from the Galactic Council. They demanded an emergency meeting. Ambassador attended via hologram from the Resolute. The representative, a different one than before, spoke with barely controlled rage. The humans have attacked our fleet without provocation. This is an act of war. His expression didn't change. You attacked our colony. You killed 300,000 of our people. You laughed when we asked for justice. If you want to talk about acts of war, we can start there. The representative chimed in. Perhaps a peace agreement can be reached. The humans have proven they can defend themselves. There is no need for further conflict. There is every need, replied coldly. You both dismissed us as weak and irrelevant. You treated human lives as worthless. Now you want peace because we hurt you. No, you had your chance for peace. You chose violence. Now you face the consequences. She cut the transmission before they could respond. On Earth, Admiral gathered his commanders for a strategy meeting. General joined via hologram from Mars, where she commanded the ground forces. She was 50 years old, tough as steel, and had spent 30 years training human soldiers. The aliens fight like they're playing a game with rules, said. They expect honor. They expect fair fights. We need to show them that war has no rules except survival. Agreed, Admiral said. Captain, your fleet will continue operations against the General, prepare your forces for planetary assault. If we're going to end this war, we need to hit them where they live. He looked at each commander's face on the screen. We're not fighting for territory. We're not fighting for resources. We're fighting to make sure every species in this galaxy knows one thing. Humans are not to be trifled with. When you attack us, we don't forgive. We don't forget. And we don't lose. Commander Jin Park stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, looking out at the stars. His sister and her daughter were safe now, evacuated to Mars with the other survivors. But Jin couldn't forget the bodies at New Seoul, couldn't forget the soldier laughing. Tech specialist Hei Moon joined him at the window. Hei was young, barely 25, but brilliant with computers. She had designed most of the electronic warfare systems that had won the Battle of Station. Commander, Hei said quietly, I've been monitoring and communications. They're scared, really scared. They keep asking each other how we got so good at war so fast. Jin looked at her. What do they think the answer is? Some think we've been hiding our capabilities. Some think we got technology from another species. But a few, Hei paused, a few have figured it out. They found our history files, our wars, all of them. Thousands of years of humans fighting humans. And they're terrified. Because they realize we didn't learn to fight in the last few months. We've been practicing for our entire history. They think they've been at war for 18 years. We've been at war for 10,000. Jin nodded slowly. Good. Let them be terrified. Maybe it'll make them think twice before they laugh at human deaths again. He turned back to the window. Out there in the darkness, the war continued. But now humanity was winning, and they were just getting started. 6 months into the war and the galaxy had changed. Both the Dominion and the Coalition sent messages to Earth. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted humanity to choose a side. They offered territory, technology, trade agreements. Admiral read both messages and laughed. It was not a happy sound. He sent the same response to both factions. We choose humanity. Everyone else chose to be the enemy. Then humanity did something that shocked everyone. They attacked both sides at once. General led the first planetary assault on a mining world called 7. The planet was protected by orbital defense platforms, 300 automated weapons that could destroy any ship that got too close. Traditional military thinking said you had to destroy those platforms before landing ground forces. That could take weeks. Didn't have weeks, and she didn't follow traditional military thinking. "All drop ships, this is General," she said from the command ship. "Execute Operation Hammer." 300 drop ships launched from human carriers, but they didn't approach the planet slowly. They came in fast, accelerating at speeds that would have crushed alien soldiers in their seats. Human soldiers, wearing advanced pressure suits, could survive the G-forces. The defense platforms tried to track the incoming ships, but the drop ships were small, fast, and coming from every direction at once. The platforms destroyed 20 ships, but 280 made it through. They hit the atmosphere at orbital velocity, using heat shields and retro-rockets to survive the descent. 12 minutes after launch, human soldiers were on the ground. They had 10,000 soldiers defending the planet. They had fortified positions, heavy weapons, air support. They expected a siege. They got something else. Human soldiers didn't fight like any enemy they had faced. They moved in small teams, using terrain and buildings for cover. They struck from unexpected angles. They used explosives, snipers, close combat weapons. They fought dirty. The commander sent a message to his superiors. "These humans fight like demons. They don't follow any proper military doctrine. They ambush, they hide, they use tactics that should not work but do. Send reinforcements." By the time reinforcements arrived 3 days later, forces had captured every major installation on the planet. The soldiers surrendered, not because they were cowards, but because continuing to fight would have been suicide. Stood in the captured command center and sent her report to Admiral. 7 is secure. Ground forces are no match for human infantry tactics. Recommend we continue planetary operations. While was winning on the ground, Captain was winning in space. He had learned something important about They used biological weapons, deadly viruses and toxins designed to kill their enemies without damaging infrastructure. Doctor had been studying those weapons. She worked day and night in her laboratory, analyzing captured samples, breaking down their genetic structure. She was brilliant, but this was personal too. Those biological weapons had been used on New Sol, on human civilians. She found the solution in an unexpected place. Human immune systems were different from alien ones, more adaptable, more aggressive. She created counteragents, vaccines that not only protected humans but actively destroyed the biological weapons. When they tried to use their bioweapons on human ships, the weapons failed. Completely. The viruses died on contact with human biology. This most feared weapons were useless. Captain reported with satisfaction. Their biological warfare program is now obsolete. Against us, at least. But humanity's secret weapon wasn't just technology or tactics. It was something the aliens had never encountered: human cyber warfare. Tech specialist Hey Moon led a team of hackers, programmers, and AI specialists. They had been studying alien computer systems for months. They used artificial intelligence to coordinate their fleets, to manage logistics, to control automated defenses. Those AI systems were sophisticated, but they had a weakness. They had been fighting each other for so long, they had built in specific defenses against each other's hacking attempts. They weren't prepared for something completely different, for human code. Hay sat at her workstation on the Resolute, fingers flying across holographic keyboards. Around her, 30 other specialists did the same. They were preparing for what Hay called the big one. Captain Hay said, "We're ready, give the word." Looked at Admiral's face on the command screen. The Admiral nodded. "Do it." Hay's team unleashed a virus into the military network. It spread like wildfire, jumping from ship to ship, base to base. Within hours, every AI system was infected. The fleet near human space suddenly lost coordination. Ships stopped responding to commands. Weapons systems went offline. Some ships even turned their weapons on each other, their AIs confused and corrupted. They tried to purge their systems, to reboot and start fresh. But Hay's virus was smart. It hid, it adapted, it kept coming back. Every time they thought they had it fixed, it would resurface. Commander Jin Park watched the chaos on his tactical display. "That's devastating," he said with awe. "That's war," replied. "They wanted to fight us. They're learning what happens when you fight a species that's been doing this for 10,000 years." Humanity pressed their advantage. Over the next few weeks, 17 occupied worlds were liberated. Not worlds, but planets belonging to smaller species that had been conquered during the 18-year war. General led the liberation efforts, and every freed world added to humanity's growing reputation. But the real shock came when Admiral announced the next target, Prime. The Galactic Council sent frantic messages. Attacking a species was unthinkable. It was against every rule of civilized warfare. It would mean genocide. Ambassador responded personally. "We have no intention of committing genocide, but the need to understand that their actions have consequences. They killed 300,000 humans. They laughed at our dead. Now they will watch they're surrounded by human ships and wonder if we're as cruel as they were." Captain led the fleet to Prime. 200 human ships, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. They jumped into the system and immediately took up positions around the planet. They had defenses. Thousands of orbital platforms, hundreds of defense ships, planetary shields that could withstand anything. They had prepared there to be unassailable. For 72 hours, humanity just waited. 200 ships hanging in orbit, weapons powered but not firing. The psychological effect was devastating. Everyone on the planet looked up and saw human ships, waiting, watching, silent. Admiral broadcast a message on repeat. "Surrender, or we demonstrate why humans spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare." The government held emergency meetings. Their military leaders assured them the defenses were strong. They could hold out for months, maybe longer. They refused to surrender. On the fourth day, they attacked with everything they had. Defense platforms fired, ships launched, planetary batteries opened up. It was an awesome display of firepower. The Battle of Prime lasted 11 hours. It was the bloodiest fight of the war. Human losses were substantial. 23 ships were destroyed, including 2 carriers. 3,000 human soldiers and crew died. But when it was over, the military was shattered. Their defense platforms were debris. Their ships were burning wrecks. Their planetary shields were down. Captain stood on the bridge of the Resolute. His ship had taken damage. 3 of his crew were dead. He looked at the planet below and knew he could give the order, could bombard the surface, could do to Prime what they had done to New Sol. Commander Jin Park stood beside him. Jin had every reason to want revenge. His sister's husband had died at New Sol. Thousands of families had been destroyed. "Captain," Jin said quietly, "what are your orders?" Looked at the planet for a long moment. Then he opened a communication channel. "All ships hold position. Do not fire on the planet. I repeat, do not fire on the planet." He broadcast a message to the government. "Your military is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. We could wipe your civilization from existence right now, but we won't. Because unlike you, we remember that there's a difference between soldiers and civilians. There's a difference between justice and genocide. You killed our people and laughed. We defeated your military and chose mercy. Remember that. Remember what humanity is capable of, both in war and in restraint." The message was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Every species heard it. Every government received it. They surrendered unconditionally 3 hours later. The seeing what happened to their longtime enemy, surrendered the next day without another shot being fired. The war was over, not because of peace negotiations, not because of treaties, but because humanity had proven something terrifying and undeniable. You could push humans, you could test them, you could even kill them, but if you made them angry enough to go to war, they would win, and they would do it in ways you never imagined. General brought her troops home. Captain landed her fighters. Tech specialist Hayes shut down her cyber warfare systems. Doctor returned to her laboratory, this time to develop medicine instead of weapons. But everyone knew the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had announced their presence, and they had done it in a way no one would ever forget. 1 year after the war ended, the Galactic Council gathered in a new location, not in orbit above some neutral world, but on Earth itself. In Geneva, in the same halls where humans had once negotiated peace among themselves. Admiral walked into the chamber wearing his full dress uniform. He was older now, the war had aged him, but he stood straight and tall. Behind him walked Captain, Commander Jin Park, General, Ambassador, and representatives from every human colony. The alien delegates were already seated, and dozens of other species. They watched the humans enter with expressions that ranged from respect to fear to carefully hidden resentment. Admiral took his place at the podium. In his hands he held a document, the Treaty of Terra. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice filling the chamber. "1 year ago, humanity entered your war. We did not want to fight. We wanted peace. But you forced our hand. You killed our people and dismissed our pain. You believed we were weak." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You were wrong, and now we are here to ensure that no one makes that mistake again." He placed the treaty on the podium. "These are the terms. Both the Dominion and the Coalition will dismantle all offensive military capabilities. You may maintain defense forces for your own protection, but no weapons capable of interstellar warfare. You will pay reparations to every species that suffered in your 18-year war, and you will submit to inspections by a neutral peacekeeping force." The representative, a younger one now, stood to speak. The old representative had not survived the shame of losing to humans. "And who will lead this peacekeeping force?" "A coalition of neutral species," Admiral replied, "with humans holding veto power over any military action." The chamber erupted in noise. Protests, arguments, objections. Admiral waited for the noise to die down. "You have a choice," he said simply. "Accept these terms or face the consequences. We have shown you what happens when you underestimate humanity. Do not make us show you again." The vote was unanimous. Even the and voted yes. They had learned their lesson. Ambassador took the podium next. She looked out at the assembled aliens and spoke with quiet authority. "Many of you thought humans would avoid your war because we valued peace. You were right to think that. We do value peace. We value it more than you can imagine, but you made a critical error in judgment." She let the silence stretch for a moment. "You mistook our love of peace for weakness. You forgot that those who truly understand the value of peace are the same ones who understand the cost of war, and we are willing to pay that cost to ensure others don't have to." She gestured to the humans around her. "Look at us. Look at what we accomplished in 1 year of war. Now imagine what we could accomplish in a century of peace. That is what we offer: partnership, cooperation, growth. But only if you remember this one simple rule: human lives matter, human dignity matters, and if you forget that, we will remind you." The treaty was signed. The war was officially over. The galaxy had a new order, one where humanity played a central role not through conquest, but through demonstrated capability. Captain returned to the Resolute. He had been offered a promotion, a position in Earth Command. He turned it down. "I'm a ship captain," he told Admiral. "That's where I belong." But the Resolute was no longer a lone diplomatic vessel. It was now the flagship of the peacekeeping fleet, with 50 ships under his command. His mission was to patrol the galaxy, to ensure the peace held, to respond to threats before they became wars. Commander Jin Park remained as his second in command. Jin had changed during the war. He had seen too much death, caused too much destruction, but he had also saved thousands of lives. He found peace in knowing that his sister and her daughter were safe, living on Mars and helping to rebuild New Sol in its new location. Han, the young girl whose testimony had helped spark the war, was now a teenager. She had grown up during the conflict, had seen the worst of what beings could do to each other. But she had also seen the best. She had seen humans risk their lives to save strangers, seen soldiers show mercy when they could have chosen vengeance. She decided to join the diplomatic corps. At 16, she was the youngest person ever accepted into the program. Her goal was simple: make sure the next generation never needed to fight like her generation had. Doctor established the Institute for Understanding. It was funded by reparations from the end, and its mission was to study alien cultures, biology, and psychology to prevent future conflicts. Believed that understanding led to peace. The war had proven the cost of misunderstanding. General retired from active military service. She became the head of the Peacekeeping Academy, training soldiers from dozens of species in human military tactics, not to make them more dangerous, but to make them more capable of defending themselves without aggression. War should always be the last option, she told her students. But when it's the only option, you need to know how to win quickly and decisively. A short war saves more lives than a long one. Tech specialist Hei Moon became the youngest department head in Earth's Cyber Defense Agency. She used her skills to protect human and allied computer systems, to prevent the kind of warfare she had waged from being used against humanity. Engineer Wu returned to peaceful work. His weapons designs were classified and locked away. He hoped they would never be needed again. Instead, he designed the new generation of colony ships, vessels that could travel farther and carry more people than ever before. Ambassador remained Earth's chief representative to the Galactic Council. She was respected now, feared even. When she spoke, people listened. But she never forgot the days when aliens laughed at human concerns. She made sure humanity's voice would always be heard. 10 years after the war, the Galactic Council held its annual assembly. It was a routine meeting, discussing trade agreements and scientific cooperation. Earth's representative was a middle-aged woman named Park. She was Commander Jin Park's niece, Han's cousin. She had lost her father at New Seoul. During a break in the proceedings, an elderly representative approached her. He had been a young soldier during the war, had fought in the Battle of Prime. He walked with a limp now, a reminder of that day. "Ambassador Park," he said quietly, "may I speak with you?" Nodded, "Of course." The looked uncomfortable. "I wanted to say something. Your species taught us a lesson. We thought you would avoid war because you were weak. The truth was more frightening. You avoided war because you knew what you were capable of. You had fought yourselves for so long, you knew exactly how to fight us." Listened without expression. "But the real lesson," the continued, "was what you did after you won. You could have destroyed us, could have made us slaves or wiped us out completely. Instead, you showed mercy. You helped us rebuild. You treated us like people who had made mistakes, not monsters beyond redemption." He paused, then bowed his head. "That is the lesson we will never forget. Not your weapons or tactics or strategies, but your choice to be better than us when you had every reason not to be." Looked at the old warrior. She thought of her father, thought of the 300,000 dead at New Seoul, thought of all the pain and loss. "We showed you mercy once," she said quietly. "Remember that. Remember what humanity is capable of both in war and in peace, and make sure your people never make us prove it again." The representative nodded slowly. "We remember. We will always remember." He walked away and returned to the assembly hall. The meeting continued. Trade agreements were negotiated. Scientific partnerships were formed. The galaxy moved forward. But everyone remembered. They remembered the sight of human ships over there. They remembered how quickly their defenses fell. Every species that had watched the war remembered the lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. Captain, now an admiral himself, stood on the bridge of a new ship and looked out at the stars. He was older, his hair gray, but his eyes were still sharp. The galaxy was at peace. His peacekeeping fleet hadn't fired a shot in anger in 5 years. "Admiral," his second-in-command said, "we have a distress call from the Helios sector. A trade dispute between 2 colonies is getting heated." "Set course," ordered. "Let's go remind them that there are better ways to solve problems." The ship turned and accelerated toward the crisis, not with weapons ready, but with mediators and negotiators, because that was humanity's real strength. Not their ability to wage war, but their understanding that war should always be the last resort. The aliens had believed humans would avoid their war. They were right. Humans did prefer peace, but they had learned at terrible cost that sometimes peace must be enforced. And when humanity enforced peace, they did it with the same efficiency and determination they brought to war. The galaxy was learning to live under a new truth. Humans were neither weak nor cruel, neither pacifists nor warmongers. They were something more complex. They were a species that understood both the necessity of violence and the value of restraint. They were dangerous when threatened but merciful in victory. They were capable of terrible destruction but chose construction instead. They were, in short, exactly what they had always been throughout their history. They were human. And the galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating that again. Somewhere on Earth, in a small apartment on the rebuilt New Sol colony on Mars, Park sat with her and told them stories of the war. She told them about the uncle who rescued them, about the soldiers who fought for them, about the admiral who chose mercy over revenge. "Remember," she told them, "we didn't fight because we loved war. We fought because we loved peace enough to defend it. That's the difference. That's what makes us human." The children listened, and they understood. The war was over, but its lessons would echo through generations. Humanity had proven themselves to the galaxy, not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being the most determined. By showing that when you push humans far enough, they push back harder than you can imagine. But more importantly, they had proven something else. That strength without mercy is tyranny. That victory without compassion is hollow. That power without responsibility is meaningless. The aliens had believed humans would avoid their war. They were proven wrong. But in being proven wrong, they learned something valuable. They learned what humanity truly was. And in learning that, the galaxy became a better place.